Welcome to the All Financial Hour podcast with Steve All.
You know, Steve, we've been talking about inflation quite a bit lately. The inflation rate is currently at 3.3%, up nearly a full percentage point in just 1 month. The Fed saw this coming in its latest forecast and thinks that inflation will go even higher. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, calls it the skunk at the party. He warns it could mean higher interest rates, falling markets, and a rush to cash. So what's the danger there for retirees, Steve?
Well, when you look at it with retirees, the biggest thing for inflation causes, it's the thing most people don't plan on in their retirement. Inflation, the loss of buying power. And when we start to run plans, we use a 3% inflation. People say, well, why don't you run it at 6, 7, and 8 in the years it's real high? I say, because it doesn't stay there. I didn't run it at 0 for the rest of your life in those years when we had almost little to no inflation, when people were getting the exact same Social Security check every year because inflation was not a part of the equation. So we run it at 3%. And people do not realize that if you have a 23-year span in your retirement, which I guess almost everybody does, prices will double. That means if you're spending $5,000 a month, 23 years from now, you're going to be spending 10. And if you're spending 10 now, you're going to be spending 20. And I get people that will look at it and go, Steve, there's no way I'm going to be spending $20,000 a month when I'm 85 or 86 years old. And I look back and say, did you ever thought you were going to be spending $10,000 a month or $5,000, whatever that number is? And then I ask simple questions like, what was the price of your first car? For me, that was about $4,000. What car could you buy today for $4,000? How much was that first house? For me, it's right around $100,000. And in St. Louis, there's not very many neighborhoods that you'd really want to move into with $100,000 for a house. So people go, well, what if you don't do the inflation side of it? I said, that means your buying power slows down by 50% in 23 years. So if you were spending and what it cost you to live is $10,000 now, it's only going to buy what $5,000 would right now. And most people are not willing to bring down that spending. They want to try to keep up with the cost. And I think that is one of the biggest things when we have people come in with the do-it-yourself plan is when I look at it and I go, did you include inflation in this? No, I'm not really worried about it. You know, I'm going to retire and my Social Security and my pensions basically cover it. And then I have to look at it and say, what do we do for those people? And I believe that's where we have to get all the expenses. I think guarantee your lifestyle is the best thing that you can do. And then those invested dollars, when we go to the markets, the ETFs, buying stocks, bonds, those things for people, because we do both. Make sure you got your income covered. And then it's those investments that are there to help cover inflation and the extras in life. I want to go on a bigger vacation. I want to create memories with my children. That's what the market is for. So look at it and say, is your income going to cover your lifestyle? If it's not, I suggest we sit down and talk about what we could get to guarantee your lifestyle and take the balance of your assets to cover inflation, to cover those cost of living adjustments, and to cover the extras. So if you have failed the plan to cover inflation during your lifestyle, give us a call. Ask for that comprehensive retirement plan. Allow myself and my team to sit down with you to look at it to, am I able to keep my cost of living and my lifestyle up throughout my retirement? Give us a call now. Ask for that comprehensive retirement plan.
And you could do that today. By the way, complimentary for our radio listeners today. Talk about guaranteeing your lifestyle and cover the inflation hikes that we'll see in the future. This comprehensive retirement plan is a great place to start. 636-230-8824. 636-230-8824. And again, that website, yourmoneymattersstl.com. And, questions about how to guarantee our lifestyle and cover inflation, these are things that folks talk about in the seminars that you do. Steve, you and the team have one coming up May 6th and May 7th at Twisted Tree. Talk to me about it.
It's what we call retirement simplified, because retirement's not the same as it used to be. Mom and Dad had pensions, had Social Security and savings, three-legged stool. Now, a couple of those legs are pretty weak. What's going to happen to Social Security? And most of us don't have pensions anymore. So it's that idea around how do we retire today when that landscape has changed so much. Come, visit us. We'll be at the Twisted Tree for Retirement Simplified. You have to call to get a reservation.
Again, that's May 6th and 7th at Twisted Tree. You can call and RSVP today. That's 636-230-8824. More details on the website, yourmoneymattersstl.com. One of the leading recreational activities for seniors is pickleball. It's estimated that about 1.4 million people over the age of 50 play the sport, but you won't find comedian Karen Morgan picking up a paddle anytime soon.
If you don't already know what pickleball is, you soon will, because one of your friends will find it, and they will not shut up until you try it too. What is pickleball? It was invented by a drunk person who went to their garage and couldn't find all the equipment for one sport, so they just combined a bunch all together and made up new rules. The next thing you know, you're waking up behind a Panera Bread next to a dumpster with a silly racket in your hand.
Oh, come on. Pickleball's super fun, Steve.
Well, think about it. It's a ping pong paddle, basically, and a wiffle ball on a tennis court. So I can see where she's coming with the ideas around that. So, so I look at it, but that is probably the best definition I've ever heard of pickleball.
Well, listen, I think what they did is they mixed together a bunch of kind of like half ideas, and then they just were like, well, I hope this works out as a cool game, and it has, but you can't necessarily do that in retirement, right? I mean, you can't do this DIY mashup and hope things work out.
Well, that's what I look at it is the idea around the DIYs. I've seen a lot of things that come out of the DIY. It's amazing when I'll either at a presentation or in the office, and I get that Medicare's not free. People are shocked when they find out they're going to have to pay for Medicare. I'd say the worst mistake, somebody had borrowed money so that he wouldn't have to buy the insurance under the Affordable Care Act for 3 years, so that he wouldn't have to pay anything for his insurance. And then he found out that he's got to pay back that loan, and his Medicare is going to cost him money. So that was a big one. The other one that I think comes up quite a bit, especially with the one big beautiful bill. Well, Social Security is not taxed anymore. Yeah, it is. They didn't change that law. If your income is under a certain amount and you're over age 65, then you might get a deduction for extra standard deduction, but they didn't change the laws around the taxability of Social Security. The other one, I think, when we start to talk about long-term care and what does that cover and what does it not cover, people are shocked when they find out Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care. You're on your own for that. And those are those things that I think when we start to look at do it yourself, and I like to say it, the things that you don't know are what's going to hurt you. We get stuff like, well, when we start to talk about legacy planning, wills and trust. Well, I don't have to worry about probate because I have a will. And I go, a will guarantees probate. And they look at me like, what do you mean? And I said, that's what probate is. They're validating your will. Those little things like that. The one that's been around forever, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. And it's funny, I'll ask that question all the time when I'm doing a presentation. And I'll ask, please raise your hand if you heard you'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Everybody raise their hand. And I say, keep your hand up if you're in a lower tax bracket. And very few people raise their hands. And I said, well, did they lie to us or what at that time? Well, the tax bracket, when that promise was made, the top bracket was about 70% plus. So there was a really good chance back in the 70s that if you were in that top tax bracket, you would go down. But most people remain in that tax bracket because of the fact they developed a lifestyle, and that money they're pulling out of their IRAs and 401ks is taxed as ordinary income. And I think then we look at it and say, but did you think about what happens when you have to take those required minimum distributions? Because of the Secure Act, now what was a greatest tool that we could pass on to our children could possibly be a tax time bomb. You know, having too much money in your IRAs and 401ks will subject you to tax rate risk in the future. Because of the fact if they raise taxes, it's amazing. I had one client talked about RMDs, I know, at least 5 or 6 times. All of a sudden, she comes into her review, and she was a spreadsheet person, and she had it on her spreadsheet. And she looked at me and says, do you know what my required minimum distributions are going to be when I'm 70 years old? Because she was a very aggressive investor. And she goes, this is unreal. I said, I've been talking to you about that for 3 to 4 years. But because, and I went, here, let's look. And I said, yeah, you're not that far off. Yours are a little bit higher because I had your rate of return a little bit lower. So those are the things that people don't look for. And that's where I like to say, if this is I've done it all myself, I've done my investing, I've got my taxes all figured out, I've got all these things, do me a favor, call, ask for the comprehensive retirement plan, because I look in this case right here, what you don't know can hurt you. People are surprised when I talk about qualified charitable distributions, how you could possibly save taxes in Roth conversions. They just don't make sense to a lot of people until you can actually put the numbers to them. So reducing or eliminating taxes is the greatest thing that you can do for a successful retirement. So if you got more than $500,000 in investable assets, give us a call. Allow us to look and see, would taxes and Roth conversions make sense for you? Now, I deal with people with under $500,000, but the tax analysis is a lot more beneficial, and the plans that we put it through are for people that have more. So give us a call. Allow us that opportunity to look at these ideas and make sure that you're prepared for all of retirement, investments, risk reward, income, and make sure that we don't have anything that you might have missed in planning for your own retirement. Give us a call. Ask for the comprehensive retirement plan.
And again, remember, if you have at least $500,000 saved in investable assets, one more time, that phone number, 636-230-8824. 636-230-8824. Again, this is for that complimentary comprehensive retirement plan. The website, yourmoneymattersstl.com. Last year, Americans held about $30 trillion in IRAs and 401k retirement accounts, and that was up 11% from the year before. A lot of that money is being held by older Americans, and an article recently from AARP says that the financial services industry is now bending over backwards to serve them, especially when it comes to guaranteed income. Steve, can you give us some examples of what your clients are asking for right now?
When people start to look at how am I going to replace my paycheck in retirement, because that's what basically retirement, how that works. Now, if you've got a pension in your Social Security and it covers your standard of living, that's not something that you really have to worry about. But if you're like most of us that don't have a pension today, that's something that needs to be looked at. And the different parts of the industry are looking at those types of things. Some of the 401k plans have what we call single premium immediate annuities. It looks a lot like a pension. You're going to get a paycheck. You're trading a part of your 401k for a guaranteed income for the rest of your life or a period certain. It looks exactly like a pension. So that's one way you could do it. We could, if your portfolio is big enough, we could take 4 or 5% out of it and allow you just to pull income, or set aside enough in bonds and dividends to create an income. I loved it when the one that basically sits there and says that this company, it's a big company, argues that a strategy of buying an annuity and investing more aggressively in the market, along with delaying your Social Security benefits will increase your chances of a successful retirement. They're just now bringing that out, and we've been doing that for a very, very, very long time. Delay the Social Security, guarantee my lifestyle, and if I've got a guaranteed lifestyle, I can be more aggressive in the investment world. So that's where we're looking at it to figure out where you're at. So if you don't have that pension that covers, call now. Ask about that personally funded pension, or I don't want that. How could I cover that by just using my investments? Give us a call and ask for income planning. Allow myself and my team to assist you in how you're going to get the income to replace your paycheck.
Thanks for listening to the All Financial Hour podcast.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business All Insurance Group, LLC, AIG. All Financial Group, LLC is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by All Insurance Group, LLC, AIG are not subject to investment advisor requirements. IPW and All Insurance Group, LLC, AIG are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. All Financial Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by All Financial Group, LLC.
This radio show is intended for information purposes only.